Hello everybody, this is Cap here, and I would like to welcome you to the 28th video in my Beginner C++ tutorial series. So in this video we are going to be getting back on track with polymorphism and talk about operator overloading. So as you can see, to save a little time here, I've already created two poly objects, which is of course based off the class that we made a while back. And I've already filled out their two attributes of num1 and num2. So let's say we wanted to add B to A, which would be adding their num1 and num2 together. Well, we would say a.num1 equals a.num1 plus b.num1 a.num2 equals a.num2 plus b.num2. Save it, run it, and we did it because it added, 20 and 10 is 30, and 30 and 15 is 45. But that's not really a very efficient way to do this. Because just think if we had objects that had, 20 or 30 data members, and we had to do this for each one, that would not be very efficient, and it would take up a lot of our time. So what if we could just say A plus equal B? Well, that would be great, wouldn't it? But according to the compiler, right now we can't, but there's this great thing called operator overloading, which would allow us to do so for our poly class. So if we go into our poly.h file and just say poly, and we want to return a reference, and I'll show you guys why when we walk through the code. And you want to say operator plus equal, because that's the operator that we want to overload. And then the parameters that will be passed in is a poly const, because we don't want this object to change since we're passing it in by reference. Or, well, I should probably say that a little bit differently. Since we're passing it in by reference and it has direct access to the object itself, we want to pass it in as a const or constant, so it cannot be modified, because this isn't the one we want to modify. So let's save that, come over to our .cpp file, and of course say poly ampersand, because we're returning a reference, poly scope operator plus equal, and then the rest of it here. Oop. Man, sorry guys, the mic's kind of blocking my view of the top row of my keyboard. Okay, so how are we going to do this? Well, you need to envision operators just like you would functions. And this, what I'm type here, may not make sense to you at the moment, but in a few minutes it will. So what we want to do is we want to say num1 equals num1 plus p1 dot num1, num2 equals num2 plus p1 dot num2, and then we are going to return the dereferenced this pointer, which means that we are returning a reference to this object, the object that called this class, or called this operator. So let's say we now have A plus equal B. See, now it doesn't flag it because it's legal. We overloaded it, and it is now valid working with these objects. So let's save it and run it. And as you can see, it did what we wanted it to. So that's great. Now we don't have to go through that whole hassle before with the whole, adding a.num1 and a.num1 to b.num1 and all that. Inside our other code, we can just do it once with the operator overload and then just use the operator the rest of the time. But what I meant by you need to envision these as method calls. So we need to envision this as a dot plus equal there. So this is how we need to envision it. We need to envision it as A calling the plus equal method and passing in B. So what we're doing, if we go back into here, is we're passing B in as, or a reference to B as constant, and this is actually A that we're referring to whenever we say num1 and num2, and of course also with this. So this is referring to A. So we're actually returning a reference to A in this context here. So why would we want to do that? Well, what it allows us to do is actually chain these together. So we can have A plus equal B plus equal A, plus equal B. You could do this with a lot of different poly objects as well. And then we could run it, or save it, and then run it here. And as you can see, it just, stacked them on top of each other and summed them together. So the way we would envision this is A dot plus equal B dot plus equal A dot plus equal B. So I hope this is kind of starting to make sense to you guys of why I'm doing this, telling you to envision them as methods or functions so that it makes more sense. So if we look at it this way, forgot a parenthesis there. I have to add another one there, I think, too. Is here we're saying A dot, and it works from right to left. A dot plus equal B, so we're passing in B as the reference here, as this reference. And we're saying B dot num1 plus A dot num1 equals A dot num1. And A dot num2 plus A dot num2 plus B dot num2. And then we're returning the dereferenced this object, or this pointer, which would be the A object, as a reference. And why are we doing this? Because now we've done this operation here and added all of B to A. So I'm going to get rid of this, and bam. Now A is our argument for this operation, which is B plus equal A. So we just pass it as a reference, and it just goes on down. So that's how we're able to chain these together. I mean, you could do this or something similar to this without using references, but it would be tremendously inefficient. And I'll actually show you guys. So let's save this. Let's go back to our .cpp. Let's take away this. Take away this. So we're no longer returning references. And let's run it. So it did the same thing, but look at how many more objects were created here. A lot more. And the constructor isn't there because it's using a different constructor. It's using what's called the copy constructor, I believe. I believe that's what it's called. And I haven't messed with that constructor. See, with the default constructor, I told it to print out polyObject created, and with the destructor, polyObject destroyed. But we can still see this destroyed with the destructor that I told to print this out. So as we can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 objects were created instead of the 2 that would have been created had we used references. So that kind of puts it into perspective of why we're returning references like that. So we don't have to have these temporary objects while we're doing this operation. So let's go back to poly.cpp. Let's add in our reference back here and here. Control-Shift-Save, and then run it. So as you can see, it's much more efficient now that we put our reference back in. We only create and destroy 2 objects. I think that's about all I'm going to cover as far as operator overloading. You can do this with any of the operators that you want to. You can do this with the, the plus operator, the assignment operator, and of course the plus equal, the minus equal, even the, put to and get from operators. I do believe you can overload those as well. So if you liked this video, please let me know by hitting the like button. If you watched a few of my videos and really like them, please subscribe so you can see when I post new ones. And I would like to thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.